Hello, everybody. So my name is Łukasz, and I'm a CTO, a co-founder of very small software agency located in States called Cloud Corridor. I'm also a trainer at bootcamp called InfoShare Academy, and I think that's pretty much it about me. Because we have a pretty packed agenda for today, what I want to talk with you about is ECMA, ECMA International, ECMAScript, what is coming, what happened in previous years. So let's get started. At the end, of course, I'll be going to answer some questions if you have some. So let's start with ECMA International, or formerly known as European Computer Manufacturers Association. It is an organization that was founded in 1961 that was supposed to standardize IT products and standards within the Europe, but later on started to be more worldwide. That's why it's changed the name to ECMA International. And now the European Computer Manufacturers Association is actually not used anymore. So why I'm talking about this? Because ECMA International is responsible for something called ECMAScript. And ECMAScript is a scripting language specification. We all develop on a daily basis or as a hobby in JavaScript, but JavaScript itself is not a standard. JavaScript is a scripting language that is an implementation of ECMAScript. ECMAScript was founded by Brendan H., who was working at the time at Netscape in 1997. Initially, it was called Mocha. Later, it was renamed to LiveScript, and afterwards finally named to what we all know and use and love, JavaScript. And the history is very long because it started in 1977, as an edition 1. That started the naming of the versions as edition and the number. Later on, a year later, in 1998, a ISO internalization standardization was made, and that became an ECMAScript edition 2. A year later, edition 3 was introduced, which introduced regular expressions, try-catch statements, and other enhancements to the language. They were not big improvements when we think about what is coming in the next 1 to 3 years, but JavaScript or ECMAScript at the time was not as huge of a deal like it is right now. Then ECMAScript had a little bit of trouble because within the ECMA at the time, there were some political differences, and because of them and how some of the maintainers of the standard tried to make the language either more complex or less complex and could not have an agreement on that, the version 4 was abandoned, and that made the whole process stop for over 10 years. And in 2009, the edition 5 finally was released. That version was very, very important because it introduced strict mode, getters and setters, support for JSON, the native support for it, and 2 years later, a full alignment again with ISO standardization. From the 6th version that was introduced in 2015, it was also named ECMAScript 2015. We got class declaration, import and export modules, iterators, for-off loops, arrow function, let and const declaration, new collections, and many, many more things. One problem that was introduced during that era was that the version and the year was not the same thing or did not have even a same part of it. Like edition 6 was introduced in 2015, and the standard was also called ECMAScript 2015 or ES6. The same problem was with the ECMAScript 2016, which was the edition 7 of ECMAScript, which introduced block scoping, destructuring, async await, keywords, and more. And later on, in 2017, edition 8 introduced async await. Edition 9 introduced rest and spread variable operators, asynchronous iteration, promise prototype finally method, and a year later, ECMAScript 2019, the edition 10, introduced things like array prototype flat map, changes to array sort, and object from entries. From that moment, people decided within the ECMA to start market the standard as ECMAScript, and the year that it was introduced in, like right now, we are waiting for the release of ECMAScript 2020, which is also named right now as a AS Next, which will change in the next year. So ECMA's international structure is that there are groups of technical committees and task groups that are responsible for the actual work within the ECMA. And ECMA International works on many different projects, many different standardizations. Some of them are product safety, acoustics, information storage, multimedia coding and communication, ECMAScript, which is held by Technical Committee number 39. The programming languages as a whole is held by Technical Committee 49. The Dart language is held by Technical Committee 52. And something that is fairly new in ECMA International, and not many people know about this, is that there is a Technical Committee number 3, that is ECMAScript modules for embedded systems. And there is a movement to introduce standardization for JavaScript being run on embedded system, which is pretty neat if you ask me. So TC39 ECMAScript Technical Committee is a relatively free task group that maintains and updates ECMAScript programming language. They identify, develop, and maintain standards for libraries that extend the capabilities of ECMAScript, and they try to be as compliant as possible with ISO. They gather 6 times a year in person, and they discuss what should be included in the next version of ECMAScript. Right now, they're working on ECMAScript 2020, which should, based on the talks from JSConf Hawaii, it should be released in July, I believe, but I might be mistaken. So ECMA 262 is another name that is fairly popular, especially on Stack Overflow, and you may have heard of it. And it is developed openly on GitHub. So every work that TC39 is doing is actually open. You can review it. You can engage with them throughout GitHub mainly, and I believe IRC channels as well. And ECMA 262 contains up-to-date specification of ECMAScript 2021, the AS Next. And it, as I said, it is updated bi-monthly during in-person meetings in one of the group companies, like in Google, like in IBM, or other places. So how the TC39 is working on the next version of the standard? That process is divided in 5 steps. Stage 0 is a stage where somebody proposes that some feature, functionality, new syntax should be added to the ECMAScript, and it's just a non-formal proposition. 4 other stages are more formal. The stage 1, the proposal, is where the technical committee actually starts to engage with the proposition. So let's go through all of the steps, step by step. So as I said, stage 1 is planned to be presented to the committee by one of the TC39 champion. A champion is a member of mostly member of the TC39 that is in charge of one of the propositions, or already have been presented to the committee, but at the moment they did not rejected it or not have decided that they will go with that proposal further. One of the examples of a proposal that is in stage 0, which I find very interesting, is deprecated keyword. And the proposal is that they would introduce a new deprecated global to the language or new deprecated keyword that will allow VM implementations to either throw an error or emit some message or enhance tooling like debuggers to inform developers or users that this application, this website is using deprecated API on functionality. As of now, because it's stage 0, we don't know if it will go further in the process or if it will be rejected and archived. The syntax proposal for the deprecated keyword is like this, either the keyword or the string, very much in a fashion of strict mode. The next stage, if the deprecated would be accepted, if it would go to the stage 1, which is called proposal. And stage 1 means that it represents a problem that the committee is interested in spending the time exploring solutions to. And at this moment, they expect that there is at least a demo implementation of how it could work or some polyfills. Not all the times, like with the keywords, the polyfills are possible. So the committee at that moment are expecting some demonstrations, nothing very strict. And the entries criteria, so for something to go from stage 0, the proposal to the stage 1 is it has to have a identified champion. And as I said, this is a developer, a committee member, or in some cases rare, but still, it can be a person that is highly engaged with TC39 or somebody from third-party company that will be in charge of moving that proposal further in the process. It needs to have some examples of usage, like I said, either with the polyfills or the demonstrations. It needs to be spec'd out at the high level of the APIs. And at that moment, it needs to have publicly available repository. So each and every repository has its own proposal has its own repository on GitHub where people can engage with it. They can submit PRs to the spec. They can post issues, have discussions. And after each and every meeting that some proposal was mentioned, it will be also updated in its own repository. So if you're only interested in some parts of upcoming ECMAScript standard, you can only follow those simple, small things. Another example, this time for the stage 1 proposal, is the decimal. And that proposal is to add a built-in data type in JavaScript that represents base 10 decimal numbers, because as we know, working with floats and computation with some precision is problematic right now in JavaScript. And the proposed syntax is as follows. So it will have a suffix of m that will indicate that this particular value is a decimal. You don't need to create a new object of a class decimal. It will be a shorter way to do so. Right after the stage 1, there is a stage 2 called draft, where it is precisely described the syntax and semantics using the formal spec language. And at that moment, the committee expects that the feature will be developed and eventually it will be included in standards. So it's not that often that when something goes into stage 2, they reject it at that stage. All major semantics, syntax, and API need to be covered, and it is expected to have an experimental implementation for people to play with, get the initial feedback. One of the examples is the new range of methods in set prototype, like insertion, union, and Boolean returning methods like is subset of or is superset of, which will be highly useful. After stage 2, we have the stage 3, which is called candidate. And that stage indicates that the further refinement will require feedback from implementation and actual users. So at that moment, you should expect that feature or change of the syntax or addition of the syntax to be included in browser releases like Nightly, Canary, Developer. Chrome and Firefox are the main leads in this field right now. And the examples are object, rest, and spread properties. Or the top-level await, which will be at some point available in ECMAScript modules, which will allow to use the await statements not in a sync method at the global level, which is highly anticipated by the community right now. And if everything goes well and there are some initial implementation, it is expected that in order to go to stage 4, at least 2 browsers, 2 VMs needs to implement it and publish to the worldwide audience. And some usage scenarios and acceptance tests will be written. Those tests are held in separate repository called tests 262, which is also publicly available on GitHub. And when all of that is done, the proposal is moved by the community to stage 4, and it is expected to be, as soon as possible, be implemented by other browsers. Like currently, basically, Chrome and Firefox are implementing the features in the fastest manner, and there is they expect that, for instance, Apple Safari will implement it as well. One of the things that is in stage 4 right now, which I'm super excited about, is optional cache binding, which will allow, if we don't work with the error that is thrown in a try block within the catch scope, if we don't work with that error, we can just omit it and have just catch and the braces. Another one is object from entries, which based on entries which will be an arrays will create us a nice looking and clean object without need for additional scripting like maps and other iterations throughout the collections. Nullish operator. There is a common problem that if we use the double pipe operator, like in the 5th line, if the value is falsy, then it will take the value on the right side of the expression. With the nullish expression, only if the value to the left side of it will be either null or undefined, it will go for the default value. Otherwise, like in this case with the value 0, which is not false, it is only falsy, it is not undefined, it will take the actual value on the left side of the expression. One question that could be asked is how to use it right now. So modern browsers include as much as possible of stage 3 and stage 4 proposals in their Canary, Nightly, or Firefox does this in Developer Edition also. So if you're up to having the not so stable browser, you can definitely use that. Or if you need the stability of the product, you can use JavaScript compiler, transpiler, like Babel. or you can just check the availability, because even though some of the proposals are not even in stage 4 or in the released standard, like right now in ECMAScript 2020 or even 2021, some of the browsers decided to include that proposal implementation in their normal releases, and you can go to the caniuse.com and just check it and check for it. Like for instance, for the Nullish operator, you can easily use it in Edge, Firefox, and Chrome, and if that covers all of your browser usage, you're fine at that moment. Going to the end of the presentation, I wanted to give you some bonus information. Not only the ECMAScript work is based on the actual syntax, the global features, but also there is a work related to internalization API, and all that work is extracted from ECMA 262 to ECMA 402, and it provides the key language sensitive functionality as a complement to the ECMAScript. So some features needs to be added first to ECMAScript, so ECMA 262, and later on, based on that, ECMA 204 can work on internationalization APIs. So that's it from me today. If you have any questions, I'm super open for answering them. So Piotr asks if Nullish operator will be used in TypeScript code base. Definitely yes. Or maybe let's rephrase that, I hope it will. That problem is not only specific to TypeScript, the problem is also in TypeScript. So if TypeScript will include that in the specification of it, then I will be super happy with it. Thank you for the claps. Thank you, Paco. Thank you, Filva. I enjoyed your talk also. Thanks, Mateusz.
Okay, so that's all questions we can see. So thank you very much, Łukasz. Congratulations, great talk. I really like these updates on what's going on in this TC39. So thanks a lot for that.